Alright, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Once again, the side chat is locked to avoid frame mixing. You guys can chat in your specific gender channels under the Zulhijjah program category, inshallah. If you guys have any questions, feel free to bring me or another council member, inshallah, we'll get back to you. And just want to start it in around 2-3 minutes. Bye. Alright, okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you guys can hear me, just react to this message that I sent in side chat, and then we can start. Can you guys hear me? If you can, react to the message in side chat. Okay, perfect. Okay, anyways. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh once again. Welcome to one of the main events. One second. One of the most hyped up events in this month of Zulhijjah, and that is an event that will be going. Give a second. An event that will be going into a very deep and extreme detail. And this story is going to be about a man from a faraway land that was called Ur. It is also known as ancient Babylonia, or that's currently known to us as the modern day Iraq. So in this session, there's going to be a series. So in this session and in the sessions to come, right, we'll be diving into an extraordinary tale of an extraordinary person. He was truly extraordinary. And this man's tale, his story, his saga is defined by by certain things, right? It's defined by unwavering faith, submission to the Creator, hardship, sacrifice, resilience, and overall honor. He lived a life of resilience and hardship. However, he was blessed with honor and nobility that no one has ever received other than the prophets. May Allah be pleased with them all. This man was not only a hard worker or a person who believed and submitted, rather, he was also a strategist. He was a logician. He is a person whose intellect far outshines all types of philosophers or scientists. And we will go into deep detail about this and prove this particular point. He definitely was a man who crafted some of the most compelling or the most compelling logical arguments for the existence of God, for the existence of a creator that resonated through our generations. And most of the arguments that we use today to prove the existence of a creator, to prove the existence of God, to distinguish between what's true and false, all of the arguments and concepts that we use today always has a root that goes back to the arguments used by Ibrahim alayhi salam. Because the arguments that he used is not philosophical, is not complex, or complex. Rather, it was arguments that you and I can come up with this instant. It was arguments born from fitra that remained pure until the very end, right? And this person, this man, right? His story. To be honest, being honest with you, his story truly embodies the very essence of certain qualities and attributes: courage, conviction, strength, and overall, his story captures the very essence of divine guidance. And this particular person, is none other than Ibrahim alayhi salam, a man whom Allah called his Khalil, his friend, right? And this man is a person whom Allah Azza wa Jal refers to in the scripture as an ummah, a person that is equivalent to an entire nation. The Quran says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Inna Ibrahim kana ummatan qanitan lillahi hanifan wa lam yakun minal mushrikeen. Indeed, Ibrahim was a whole community, a whole nation by himself, obedient to Allah, exclusively devoted to Him. And he was never among those who associated anything else in partnership with Allah in His divinity. So, to truly understand the value of this so deep, right? He was a true monotheist. He was such a great individual that if you look at everything today, if you look at the three religions, the three monotheistic religions that we have today, Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, these three religions, they have one thing in common, and that is the belief of pure monotheism, or claim the belief of pure monotheism of our father Ibrahim alayhi salam. However, only one religion among these three truly remains on the path of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and that was definitely Islam. So even if you assume Christianity or Judaism, even if you take a person, a theist, who denies religion, he always comes back to a certain point. And that point is that he always says that he wants to follow the religion of his father Abraham. Every single person acknowledges this, even though they might reject religion. And this is actually a great proof that this is definitely great proof of the belief and monotheism and submission that Ibrahim alayhi salam had. Right? And going back to the term that he was called an ummah, a nation, right? So this term, it refers to an entire community, a whole nation, an entire community. Yet Allah Azza wa Jal used this to refer to one man, right? And in other words, that you could say that all of the remarkable characteristics, all of the remarkable qualities that you find in one nation, you can find the same in this particular man, Ibrahim alayhi salam, as he is referred to one nation, as a one-man nation. And he was also a close friend of Allah Azza wa Jal, Khalilullah. And we will discuss this particular thing, this concept further in other episodes, in other sessions to come, inshallah. Right? And to understand the greatness of this particular individual before we go into the story, something that you must understand is that he was so close and so dear to the Creator that Allah Azza wa Jal would manipulate the laws of physics for the sake of Ibrahim alayhi salam's comfort. And we will definitely take a look at this in the coming sessions, bi'idhnillah. Right? And he was also a man that was very dear to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So dear so that he would name one of his children after Ibrahim alayhi salam. Right? And there is a hadith that is narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari. The Abdullah ibn Masud radiallahu anhu says, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, verily every prophet has an ally among the prophets, and surely my ally is my father Ibrahim, the intimate friend of my Lord, and upon him be peace. And then we have another narration by Yusuf ibn Asbat rahimahullah. He says that it reached me that Allah Almighty revealed to Ibrahim alayhi salam, do you know why I've taken you as an intimate friend? Right? What he says is that Allah asked Ibrahim alayhi salam, do you know why I have taken you as an intimate friend? Allah said that it is because you give to people and you take nothing in return. And there's more things that you can ponder upon this. We're not going to waste any time. We're directly going to go into the next topic. But before we go in there, something that we must understand is that he is so close here to us that we do not realize how he is there and close to us. So we mention him every single day in Ashahud, right? And however, we don't take time to think about him and ponder upon him, we're going to do the exact thing that I mentioned in this session and the sessions to come, inshallah. Anyways, now the first topic that I wanted to shed some light on before we move forward, right? Before we move to the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, is the importance of three particular concepts. What are these three particular concepts? Number one, self-awareness. Number three, belief in a creator. And number four, core values, ethical values. And these three go hand in hand, right? And self-awareness, however, the ethics and morality, it is connected to the second point that I made. What is the second point I made? It is a belief in the creator. If you have firm belief in a creator, you would automatically find yourself with proper ethics and morality, and you would also be given the tools to for self-awareness, to discover about yourself, right? So these three that I mentioned, self-awareness, belief, and ethical values, understanding these three is very crucial in a person's life for many reasons. And three of the main reasons is personal development, number one, well-being, number two, and overall salvation. Right? So let's go through this step by step. So when a person attains self-awareness, conviction in belief in a creator, and they identify the values that is given to man from a divine source, right? It allows you and I to improve ourselves through introspection, through recognizing our strengths and our weaknesses, through understanding through understanding our emotions and identifying our aspirations and motivations, right? So identifying these three allows us to do the things that I mentioned. It allows us to find more about ourselves, to be a better person. And you will find everything. Basically, you will find everything as long as you find God, or you have belief in Allah Azza wa Jal. And we're going to expand on that in today's session as well, right? So now let's talk about faith. when we're talking about having faith in a God, in a creator or something, right? It has a psychological impact on us, right? It allows us to foster humility. It makes us grateful, right? It gives us a sense of belonging in the universe, right? And it offers us, happiness and peace in times of adversity. It allows us to be compassionate towards each other, and it gives us hope, right? Because a sense of belonging is a very existential thing that we have, right? Because no matter who you are or what you are, or where you are or what you feel, at one point in life you always encounter a question: where do I belong? Right? Who am I? Where do I belong? And where do I go next? And this particular question, where do I belong? This is a question that if you did not answer, it will take you to the darkest corners of the world. Now, if you take ideologies, for example, specifically the LGBTQ ideology, which we will be covering in entire. We were having three different sessions, three different stage events. Just identifying everything about this and debunking it as a whole, and identifying or talking about how it is a curse to society and our approach to that as well. If we take the LGBTQ example, ideology as an example, right? So, what is the very thing that they capitalize on? They capitalize on people's loneliness, right? This is one example out of many examples. So, when a person is rejected from society, when a person has feelings towards the same gender, the person is rejected from society. The person feels abuse, even external abuse, external to the reason, right? When the person goes through a lot of hardship and adversity, that person becomes lonely, right? And when a person is lonely, the person is more prone to being affected by the realities of the world and the trials and the tests, and specifically a person with no belief in God. So, what do you do next? It is basically like uh, a poor sheep in front of a pack of wolves. That a poor sheep is abandoned away from the herd in front of a pack of wolves, and a pack of wolves are the different ideologies. So when the different so when the different ideologies or the pack of wolves that we refer to find a lost sheep or lost individual with no belonging, they tend to capitalize on this. Why? Because they need to grow in numbers. And so they come and say, okay, we will give you a sense of belonging. We will give you love. We will give you care. All of these are fake, by the way. Fake, and we'll explain more upon that later. And they will capitalize on this and take that person in. Even if you are a person who is not a part of the LGBTQ community, to be example, for example, right? Even if you're not a part of that, what they will do is that they will show you that this is a place of comfort, a place of happiness that will eventually get you to support them. And once you support them, there is a different propaganda that makes you a part of that. This is LGBTQ, for example. Then we have different ideologies. Same with Christianity, right? Because Christianity, more than logic and arguments for God or rational arguments, they tend to capitalize on emotions, right? So this is something that you need to be aware of. And this is how a sense of belonging, one concept alone, can actually destroy you. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, he recognized all of this at such a young age, which society calls now a teenager. Yeah, it was such a young age that we call it a teenager or young, maybe teenager or young, like around 12 to 13. Some people don't even consider 12 years old as being a teenage age, right? So it was at this age when he understood this, when he realized this, that from a young age, he was a very inquisitive person. He looked around and he analyzed. He looked at the sun, he looked at the moon, he looked at the stars and the livelihood of the people around him. And then he came to a conclusion that the path that his people was following is definitely void of truth, void of logic, void of rationality, void of morality. And he, at such a young age, he came up with this conclusion that there is something going on, there's some ulterior motive behind everything, right? And so this is what enabled him to see and ponder. And going into the Quran verse again, going into the Quran, there's a specific verse, right, that highlights upon wisdom being given to Ibrahim alayhi salam at such a young age. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد آتينا إبراهيم رشده قبل وكنا به عالم Surely we had bestowed wisdom upon Ibrahim even earlier, and we knew him well. So he was a man who was made to be a seeker of truth, a seeker and a speaker of truth. And he often found himself carrying the weight of being unpopular, carrying the weight of being the odd man out, the black sheep of society. And this was very cause that he faced abuse and constant neglect from his people from such a young age, right? And what's more important and interesting is that he was born into an atypical family, not a typical family, a normal family that worshipped idols. No, he was born into a family where his father was among the top elites of the society at that time, where they, created these sculptures, these different idols, and he used to sell them. So we're going to be covering more about this in a later episode. I think it's episode 2, the next episode, inshallah. We're going to go into how a person faces against society and the pressure of society a lot. So stay tuned for that as well. Okay, bring us to the next point. We talked about all of these 3 concepts, right? So self-awareness, belief in a creator, and ethics and morality. Now let's take a look at a life that is void of all these three stuff. The perfect example are the polytheists, are the atheists, because they do not have any morality. Atheists and polytheists are basically very similar in nature. They do not have a proper uh, book or a proper revelation or a proper guidelines, a moral guideline that could distinguish between the truth and the false. And when feelings and emotions or truth or knowledge in their perspective is subjective and not objective, they have their own different perceptions of what is moral and immoral and bad, and that starts, huge issues, right? And that leads you to living a sad and depressed life. And this brings us to a very important point. So some of the things that you will face when you talk to an atheist, when you talk to a polytheist, when you talk to a person in another religion is an emotional point that they will bring up. What is this point? They'll always tell you, if Islam is true, if there is a God in the first place, then why do I feel a spiritual connection to another deity, to something else? Why do I feel a spiritual connection? What is the reason for all of this stuff? In reality, the the 4 answers to this, but I'm going to stick with the first 2. Number 1, short answer, short and sweet. It is all made up in your head. Everything is made up in your head, right? Number 2, it is a false attribution of different emotions and feelings towards different deities. Keyword, false attribution. For example, if you look at things like, let's look at Buddhism. In order to achieve enlightenment in Buddhism, one of the things that you need to do is sacrifice. Another thing is meditation. And it is a scientifically proven fact that meditation brings peace and relaxation, right? However, what Buddhism does, or is a trick of the shaitan, I would say, and people, is that they would say that they mix up faith, false faith, and different stuff together, and then they would say, okay, this is the reason why you feel. For example, you feel happiness or relaxation by meditating only if you pronounce, or if you worship Buddhism, or if you worship Krishna, deity. Happiness, why? Because you're meditating in the name of such and such. The same example can be said for some idols as well, right? Because something, okay, let's go back to the example of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. So when they made idols, different idols, and they bought these different idols, right? So they believed that they had different gods for different purposes, different things, right? A god for success, a god for happiness, a god for provision, such and such. So this a story goes that there used to be 2 idols, right? So 2 people bought 2 different idols, and one person, he went out, he worshipped the idol. He worshipped, for example, let's say the idol of provision, and he went out and he had a success. He felt happy, his provision was good, and everything was amazing and perfect. And then he came back home happily. Another person, he worshipped but he did not feel good, and he went out and he had a full life. So when they came back and they were conversing with each other, so the man who had an unsuccessful day, he told the other man, "Okay, so I worship this idol, and I had an unsuccessful day when the man who sold me this idol told me that I'm gonna have a successful life, a successful time if I worship the idol. So I believe that this idol is fake, it's false. It's logical, yeah. It's logical that and it is from the fitra to understand this. But the other person said, okay, maybe you bought the wrong idol, but I worship this idol and I had a successful life, right? And I had a good, successful life, amazing. So maybe you need to buy this idol and worship this idol so you may achieve happiness. Everything that we see here is false attribution, right? Because if you have a good time, if you feel a certain emotion, if you feel good in a way, what the shaitan and the people do is that they come and tell you, okay, since you felt good, this must be the reason. The reason for this must be because you worship such and such. The reason for this must be because you did such and such. And this is how people misattribute different feelings, different emotions. Let's take look at one more example before we move on. Everybody here can admit that if you go through a time of hardship, a time of pain, and a time of stress, and you're really feeling tired, if you cry, if you cry your heart out, you will feel happy, and you will feel happy. You will feel a sense of relief. That is psychology. That is no, right? It's not the exact same peace and happiness you feel when you do that to Allah Azza wa Jal, but it is a normal kindness, venting to somebody, feeling better. So what the shaitan does is that they come and tell you, like the shouting, they tell you, okay, since you cried out to XYZ, you cried out to the Son of God, since you cried out uh, Krishna, whatever, felt happy just because if you did anything else or cried out to, so basically same attribute, false attribution of emotion to other deities. So one question that you may ask: so what if the kuffar use the same argument, right? What if they tell us worship Allah, we feel good, happy, a sense of happiness and relief, uh, just a misattribution. It's just a false attribution, and that believing Allah doesn't actually make you happy and stuff like that. In case is a false for so many reasons, but the main reason is that in order to justify that the truth, the nature of truth, or that this feeling, this spiritual feeling is true, is the actual fact that we have the truth in the first place, right? In order to justify that the spiritual feeling that we feel towards the connection that we feel, justify, the main reason is that the main purpose or the main is actually the truth. So we can, approve establishing the Islam religion, the established religion, we can go, right. So someone having triune deity, a triune being, will always be false compared to connection, connection to the creator. So that is divine, that is true. Right? So this is a difference. So it will take some time for you to sometimes. So if you have any questions about this or further, you can open a question anytime you want. And inshallah, we'll get to it. Bismillah. So I dropped a message inside chat. If you need anything, just if you understood, I want you to react to it. If you don't understand anything, I want you to ping me in your separate gender chats under the Dhul Hijjah category, and then I can get to your questions, inshallah. Guess understood? Guess understand? Mm. Sagi, okay. Okay. So we are really short of time, so we're gonna keep moving on, inshallah. If you have any questions, you can ping me and ask, or we can open any questions together. The next part, it brings us to the next point. It is the significance of searching for a divine creator, finding a creator. Second. Okay. Okay. So, what is the main significance, the main importance, the main blessings that we can take in from finding a God, such a creator? We were talking about benefit, but also the significance. It is many. We're going to keep it short. Number one, it is meaning and purpose. Everybody knows that at one point in time, and at one point in time, you might have faced your you always face potential. If you leave a man, a boy, a person, baby born of without any outside influence, the person will eventually grow to ask himself three questions: Who am I? What am I doing here? And where will I go next? Society tends to uh, they have this agenda of trying to limit people, to stop people from asking the innate position question is that if you tell, yeah, why am I here? Who created me? What happened? Where will I go next? If you tell that that Allah Azza wa Jal, that there is a creator, created, and then who came to this world, that person, baby, will definitely believe, right? It only makes sense, innate. However, if you send Son of God is also God at the same time crucified for sin, the person would definitely, baby would definitely ask questions. Why did he need to send the Son of God? Why did he need to send the Son? And all these questions I ask, it is proof of the fitrah. So, a second. So this question, a second. Am I lagging? Okay, a second. One second. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Do you hear me now? Is it got better? You guys hear me down? No. Is it lagging still or is it okay? Okay, perfect. Let's get back to top. 1 second. As I was saying, one of the most important, significant aspects of finding a creator, or going on a journey of finding God, is that you will encounter, or you will get a sense of peace and belonging, and also meaning and purpose. And as I was mentioning, the concept of fitrah, if you leave a child alone without any outside influence, that child will grow out to ask three main questions. Right? What are these questions? Number one, who am I? Number one, how did I get here? And number three, where will I go next? And if you tell this child that you got here for a purpose, that you're being tested and tried, and that there is a creator who created you, the child will not ask any more questions and he would believe it to be logical. This is only the fitrah, the natural disposition. However, if you tell that same child that there is a God who sent the Son of God, his Son who's actually God himself, to be crucified for your sins, that will be forgiven by him, the child will definitely ask more questions. The child will definitely ask you, why did he need to send himself down? Why can't he forgive us? Right? The child will always, the thing about children is that they always say what comes to their mind. They don't really care. And that is a reason that we do not get mad towards children, right? And due to this, the children, they're very innocent. They're very, really innocent. So these questions that they ask are really genuine, right? Because, there's some people that I know, some little children who asked me that. What was that question again? It's a very funny and interesting question. Okay, if God is merciful, can I go up to the heavens and hug God? Right? This is a genuine question from like genuine questions from little children. Even when you do the prostration, like, are we prostrating because we love our God? Can I go up to the heavens to hug God? I want to write a letter and go up the heavens to hug God. All of these are innocent questions, right? And a person with a corrupted fitrah, right? A corrupted fitrah who has been influenced by all of these different ideologies, they have a hard time like accepting the truth compared to a person with pure fitrah, right? So one sense is a sense of purpose and sense of meaning. That is something that we need to understand. Because without meaning, a person will tend to live a nihilistic life, a life without meaning. So whatever they do, they don't actually have a purpose. But they might, the thing about human beings is that even though they acknowledge that they have no purpose in life, they will continue to do things that do have purpose. However, in reality, they believe that there is no purpose. So there was this particular atheist that I encountered, an ex-Muslim. So the question was that I asked, it was a person who believed she had no meaning in life. And then she said, she was about to, leave the world, just to commit suicide. Right? It was a very sad moment. So, however, there was always something in her, some innate feeling or something inside that always got her to do something that had purpose. So this is a hypocrisy of a person who tends to believe that they're going to live uh, a meaningless life. Even though they claim to live a meaningless life, they still continue to do things that have meaning. They cherish meaning even though they claim that they don't want meaning. Right? And these type of people are really hard, and these type of people really are dead focused, and their stuff is like dead focused on emotions. And we can go on later, inshallah, how we can tackle this, but for now, let's keep moving. So, point number one was definitely meaning and purpose. And the second thing is moral and ethical guides. Something that we really need to know. That we as human beings, we need a moral and ethical guidance. And we see this in history. Right? We see this a lot of times in history. Even if, especially if we take a look at the children of Israel, right? The original ones, not the fake ones that we have today. But the original children of Israel. What happened was, throughout their life, after each messenger, after each prophet that was sent to them, they still continue to disobey. They still continue to divert. And they still continue to corrupt their guidelines or their morality and ethics. And this is the nature of the human being. Two things: the nature of the human being to always sin. Plus, in addition to this, we have the desires, we have the whispers of the shayateen. These two combined can definitely change the entire moral landscape of a society. And now we see that today. Definitely we see that today. Going back to the LGBTQ example, this is a really good example for this. 20 years back, 30 years back, 50 years back, People used to get burnt alive for the sin of homosexuality, but now it's really prevalent. Everybody actually acknowledges this particular thing. So this is how people are being left without guidance, without proper ethical guidance or moral guidance, can actually lead to their own destruction. So we definitely need a sense of moral and ethical guidance, and that can only be achieved through a divine source, a divine perfect source that we call the Quran and the Sunnah, right? And number three is a source of comfort and a source of support. As I said, a lonely man is more prone to be eaten by the wolves. Who are these wolves? These are the wolves of different ideologies. They're more prone to be a victim of different ideologies compared to a man or a woman who is with a sense of community. For example, if someone comes to this stage event right now and tries to promote a different ideology, none of them, even if it's 100 people, they would not succeed. Well, because number one, we have firm belief in Allah Azza wa Jalla, and we have a sense of community, right? 16,000, 17,500 members, a strong sense of community. Even the two members in the audience, a strong sense of community. Right? This is something that is definitely a source of comfort and community that will definitely allow you to withstand anything bad, even if it's like bad ideologies or whispers of the shaitan. You're less likely to commit sins or like something that's really evil on that when you have a supportive source of community. It is very important that you guys need to keep in mind. Right? And then a community and belonging, it is a similar thing. I expanded much upon this earlier. And spiritual focus, definitely. And the other thing is very important is hope and future orientation. When you believe in a God, when you believe in a creator, there is always hope for you. Even if the world is puts you down at your worst. For example, there are times where everything that you know goes against you. And sometimes even if you're the most intelligent of people, even if the most moral of all people, even if you have knowledge that is much better than other people, there will be times where hardships pile up together, where you lose sense of reality. You lose hope sometimes. You lose sense of reality. And in these times, if you do not have a firm belief in the Creator, you will not see your life being better in your future. So, in this moment, the lens through which you view the world from, right? This is being covered. This is being, I know, it's been turned into a translucent lens, from a transparent lens to a translucent lens. You won't be able to view the full picture. So you're blinded. Your future is blinded. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. So due to this, you feel bad. You feel like you don't want to live anymore. And sometimes this has been it goes to such an extent that even people with firm belief, they eventually commit the unthinkable, and you know what I mean by unthinkable. So hope and future orientation is really important, and in order to achieve this aspect, you need to find a God, you need to find a creator. And I'm not going to expand more upon this because we have much more to cover, inshallah. That brings us to the next point. There are three things that I wanted to cover before we go on to understanding the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam. You will understand his life through this concept as well. These three things I want to note this down is very important. Epistemic relativism, epistemic uncertainty, and the multiple truth fallacy, I would say. It's not a fallacy. Okay, just write it down. Just write down as a multiple truth. What this is. Okay. Is there any questions before I move on to the next phase? The next one is really important, so I want you guys to pay close attention to the next one. However, don't worry, this is not anything really complicated. This is just basic logic, basic common sense. Just just they just give the philosophers what they did, the people they just give fancy words to this basic stuff. Because it's basic stuff that you and I know very well, but with fancy words, I just don't be overwhelmed with that. Do you guys have any other questions before we move on? Just ping me if you have any questions, or if you want me to repeat anything. Okay, I assume not. Just give me a second. Okay. Okay. The next thing is simple. So when it comes to knowledge, right? When it comes to identifying knowledge of anything, to be honest, but in this case, we're going to talk about knowledge of a creator, knowledge of divinity, knowledge of divine guidance, right? There are different people with different ideologies, with different mindsets when it comes to this stuff, right? So one of the people that we see in the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam is that knowledge is relative. It is really relative. So knowledge was relative to the people of Ur, or the ancient Babylonians, right? They had their own relative description of their gods. They had their own relative beliefs about their gods. Expand upon some beliefs. They worshipped the sun, the moon, uh, the different planets, and galaxies, and they worshipped idols as well. However, they worshipped not. They didn't worship the. They claimed to not worship the exact physical embodiments or just the physical statues. How they claim to worship the spiritual factor within them, the spiritual being within these idols, which we will refute later, inshallah. So this is what they claim to believe. And this knowledge was relative to the people of Ur compared to the mainstream religion, or the mainstream belief, which was pure monotheism, which was revealed through different prophets, from Adam alayhi salam to Nuh alayhi salam to all of these prophets and messengers, right? So and so it was a knowledge that was relative, or like mainstream monotheism, which was a belief of Ibrahim alayhi salam, going against a knowledge that was really restricted and relative to a specific period of time, or a specific belief system, or a specific place at that time. Right, and whoever seemed or dared to argue with these people, they wanted to kill the people. They wanted to get rid of them. Why? Because they believed that would ruin their plans. To expand more upon this, it was there were two types of people, two types of people among the people of Ur. And the first type of people were the elites. The elites, they knew and they believed that this idol worship was actually wrong. It has no purpose. It does not serve any purpose or any benefit to everyone. And this was their main belief. However, they maintained this system. They put forth the system so they could control and manipulate the people and society. And like we see that today, we have so many uh, different ideologies that are put forth to control people today. Some could argue otherwise. However, we have mainstream systems that control people today. To mention the hack group, then we have the Illuminati and all this stuff. It's actually really true, by the way. I was going back forth. So this was at the time back then. So whoever dared to argue against against the people of Ibrahim alayhi salam, they used to kill them, they used to persecute them in order to control their people, in order to control the system. And arguing against this concept, it was really hard. However, it was hard in the sense that the fate that was in store for the people who would argue against them. However, we're going to be covering more upon this, how Ibrahim alayhi salam fought against such a relative belief through his logic, through his intellect, and we're going to identify or come up or just understand why we called him a logician, a strategist, a person of true intellect in the very beginning of this session. And we're going to cover that in one of the next topics, inshallah. The next thing I'm going to go through is the second concept. It's called epistemic uncertainty, right? Okay, let's give a second. Okay, second. So basically, what epistemic uncertainty says, it is basically you as a person acknowledging the limits of human knowledge and understanding. Right? What we do basically is we recognize that our knowledge is often incomplete. It is often subjective and not subject in a sense. I can expand more upon that. Basically, it was very limited that we do not know every single knowledge, right? So, and this is very true. Now, if you look at the people of the people of Ur and Ibrahim alayhi salam, the knowledge of the human being was very limited. The knowledge of Ibrahim alayhi salam was limited. The knowledge of the people of Ur were limited in the sense that they did not have absolute knowledge of everything. Right? Because absolute knowledge is an attribute that is attributed to Allah Azza wa Jal. The difference between the people of Ur and Ibrahim alayhi salam, the similarity is that the knowledge was limited, but the difference was that Ibrahim alayhi salam was a man who was open-minded. Right? Give me a second. Second. Yep. Okay. So Ibrahim alayhi salam was a man that was very open-minded, and he was always a person who was described as a seeker and a speaker for truth. He always challenged the social hierarchy of the people at that time. He always searched for truth, while the people of Ur, as I mentioned, two types of people, they always wanted to impose their beliefs. They were still really firm upon their beliefs. And this brings me to a very interesting point. And this point is that when you're talking to a person of the opposite faith, whether it be a Christian, whether it be a Jew, whether it be an atheist, a person whose fitra is corrupted, or a person whose fitra is filled, whose mind is filled with these different ideologies, the jump and the sacrifice that they need to make to come into Islam is something that really limits them. Because in order for them to come to Islam, they have to leave the religion behind. They have to leave their faith behind. And in order to do that, they have to tear down what they knew. The old version of themselves, they had to tear it down. They had to break it down so that a new person, a new version of himself or herself could emerge. And this is something that, especially people who are really interested in Islam, they really struggle with. Society, the fear of society going against them, the fear of the parents oppressing them, everything that we're going to cover in future episodes and future sessions bi'idhnillah. So these two you need to keep in mind, right? So these are sacrifices they have to make. And whenever you're talking to a person who's really interested in Islam, you need to capitalize or focus on these 2 points specifically. Right? Anyways, moving on. Okay. The multiple truth. The multiple truth thing. Right? The thing about multiple truth is we realize it today, and we see that in a lot of time, in a lot of different narratives of history, and specifically targeting Ibrahim alayhi salam, there were certain things that he was presented with, certain ideologies. He was presented with idol worship. He was presented with astrology. He was presented with different natural phenomena being deities, being God, right? So there were multiple truths, or multiple quote unquote truths that were put in front of him. So it was hard for him to, it was hard for a normal person to identify what is true from what is false, from what is false from what is true. Because when a person's fitra is corrupt, or a person's fitra is not corrupt, uncorrupt, yet you're faced with multiple truths, you often tend to, have all of these doubts, have all of these questions. Why is there so many truths in the first place? What if I accept something and what if it turns out to be false? What if I accept something and what if it leads me to doom and destruction? All of these questions that people want to answer but they can't answer, and this is something that really stops them. So in order to tackle the multiple truth concept, there's a few points that we have. Number one is letting your innate belief, letting your fitra unfold, letting it purely unfold, relying on your fitra and corrupting the corrupt fitra for the ones that are corrupt, right? And number two is logical arguments that we will definitely cover later in the session. Yeah, we're going to cover that later in the session. So innate belief, letting your fitra unfold. Number two, logical arguments is going to be based on fitra for this episode. And number three, the ability to change and the ability to accept. You cannot make a change in your life or accept the truth if you're in a false ideology, specifically if you do not have the ability to change and accept. If you do not have the ability to change and accept, or to learn to change, or to learn to accept, not only this particular concept, not only finding God, the finding truth, even if it's something else, right? You will always find it hard. And something that the problem that we have in mind is that when we fail or we do not have the ability to change and accept, what happens is that there's always something that holds us back. And this something that holds us back would lead us to a very tragic fate. For example, there are people who really want to accept Islam. However, they don't want to accept Islam. They can't accept Islam because they refuse to change and refuse to accept. They believe it is the truth. However, they're still in disbelief. And imagine a person dying in that state, a true state of sadness, a true state of disgrace, to be honest. And a similar situation that we have is the story of Abu Talib, right? He knew Islam was the truth. Yeah, however, he didn't want to change. He didn't want to accept. Even if you look at the people of Ur or the polytheists of Mecca at that time, the Quraysh at that time, there's something that you always come identify, you see. They believe that Islam is true. They believe that's true, right? Because even when Ibrahim alayhi salam's father was confronted, he knew that it was true. He knew that Islam was true, the true belief in monotheism is true, that idol worship is false. The elites in Mecca at that time of the Prophet ﷺ also believed it. However, they did not want to change, nor did they want to accept. This stubbornness that they had in their mind, or this weakness that they had in their heart, in their mind, this is what stopped them from achieving. That stopped them from becoming better. It's something that you need to keep in mind. You need to have the ability to change and accept. And finally, we have pondering and dialogue. Pondering is really important. It's very important, right? Because you encounter in the Quran, right, different places. We want to focus on Ibrahim alayhi salam. When he was presented with the sun, the stars, the moon, and the different galaxies, the different beliefs, he always started to ponder. And he always came up with some logical arguments. He saw because pondering with a good ankara fitra will always lead the person, the seeker of truth, to always find truth. So pondering and then engaging in dialogue. When you're engaging with dialogue, you need to engage in dialogue with a person who is truly honest and firm upon the faith. Because you may ponder, you may believe that something is true. However, if you engage in dialogue with something or with someone who believes in an opposite ideology or someone who has ill intentions, the belief that you already had is going to be corrupt. So you're going to be worse than what you are right now. So you need to ponder and learn to converse with people who are righteous, who are known to be knowledgeable, and such. The scholars and the wise, to say. And these are 4 points that actually help us navigate through the multiple truth phenomenon. It's really a very important aspect. Now, before we move on to the next part, I'm going to slowly touch up on 2 main points. There's actually a prerequisite to the main 2 points. We're going to touch up on the incoherence of atheism and polytheism. So I've got to go too much. If you want me to go too much, you can open a question ticket and let me know. Inshallah, we can go deep into it. So the incoherence of atheism, right? Because here's the argument of fitrah here. I'm not going to go into much. Just going to touch up on a few, right? If you take a person, because we're going to focus very much on fitrah. Yeah, this is like the main key takeaway point of this particular episode, right? So if you take the fitrah, if you leave a pure person, a pure boy, a pure child with no external influence for about 4 years or 6 years or 7 years or 8 years in time, the child will always grow to realize, to come to a conclusion that there is a God, that there is a creator, right? However, some people, as you know, the different ideologies that tend to take people away from the belief, and that is atheism. The notion that one of them is atheism, the notion that there is no belief, that there is no creator, that the existence of creator is just a made-up theory. So the incoherence of this is many. Number one, it goes against basic logic. So if you ask a 8-year-old child, if you tell the 8-year-old child that a creator created you, and then you tell the child, or it could be that nothing created you, that you came out from nothing, the child would most likely choose the option, or definitely will choose the option, that the creator created them. That is only logical, and number two is a part of the fitrah. The incoherence of atheism is that it goes against a
an established fact. It's just a negative argument. And atheists have this sickness, I would say. It's a genuine sickness that they'll bring up this point and they say, okay, uh, the argument that that God does not exist is actually a positive argument. So if you claim that God exists, then you make a negative argument and you need to provide proof for that. However, reality is that whether you make a positive or a negative argument, you need to provide evidence. Number one, you're going against the atheism, the concept of atheism is going against centuries or thousands of years of mainstream belief. Because if you take anything at all, even if you take any indigenous society, even if the Canaanites or the Hindus or anything, what they have something in common, even if there's multiple gods, something that we definitely believe in is the existence of a god, of a creator. Right? Even the idol worshippers, they acknowledge that there is one big creator, one main creator. However, the other idols, the other gods are just means of worshipping the creator. Right? So this basically going against the entire society, mainstream belief and innate belief. Right? So this is incoherence. We can go much deeper into this, but I'm not going to go much deeper, inshallah. The other concept, the incoherence of polytheism, it's also very important. The existence of multiple gods, the existence of multiple deities, is that which among these deities is actually true? I want you to remember that in this session that I mentioned, the story of a story from the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, where the two people with two different idols, each worshipped the idol. One went out and had a successful day, the other did not. And the one who had not had a successful day blamed it on the idol. While the person who had a successful day said, just because you worship that idol, you might not have a successful day, so why don't you worship my idol? Right? Is it brings us back to this multiple truth, multiple idols. Which one is the true one? Which one is the divine God? Right? There's all of these incoherences. Okay, I'm not going to explain much upon this because we have lower time, and I think this suffices for the next one. The next concept is actually the fitrah. Right? Uh, Give me a second. Do you have any more questions before we move on to the next part? Just ping me if you have any questions. Yeah, then you can ask your questions there. Just let me know if you have any questions. Stuff. Inshallah. Okay, I assume not. Anyways, moving on. Give me a second. Okay, anyways. Talking about the fitrah, a very important aspect that will lead us to the next topic. Fitrah is just your natural inclination, your natural disposition that a creator exists. You don't need too much knowledge. You don't need too much, studies of theory to come up with basic arguments or basic knowledge or anything that is basic. That is definitely a part of fitrah. But even though sometimes, I'm pretty sure you guys might have experienced this, that you might be faced with a question that might be tough, that might be hard. However, you knew the answer without even researching about it. Has that ever happened to you? Definitely happened to me and so many other people. You were presented a question, it might be hard. However, you knew the answer, but you do not know how you knew it. You did not know how you found the answer, what happened, etc., etc. Or you just looked at a person and you know what they're feeling, right? Or you looked at something and you just get the answer right away, right? This is a part of fitrah. It's definitely a part. You could go into different sciences, but definitely a main part of fitrah, right? So this is definitely, the fitrah is definitely a part that allows you to achieve the main goal of everything, which is to find the creator. right? And Ibrahim alayhi salam, he definitely had this. He definitely had this in his life. For example, when Ibrahim alayhi salam, he went to his father and he argued with his father. He brought forth arguments that, and his fitra was so pure, so uncorrupt, and he was a person that was well versed, right? And his words were enough. These arguments that he brought forth from his fitra were enough to convince his father to leave his father dumbfounded. So his father agreed. Ibrahim, you and I know that these idols do not bring any benefit to us. However, let's do something. Let's come to a conclusion. Let's do something that will be beneficial to the both of us. So why don't you go out and sell these idols for me? So we could make a profit out of this. It could be of some benefit. So Ibrahim alayhi salam did go out and he did sell out these idols. However, he did it in a very pure and amazing way. So what he basically said was, okay, does anyone want to buy these idols? So these idols which have no pure, no benefit, no will harm anyone, it will do nothing. It is basically worthless. If you want to buy these idols, come and buy it. And he came back without selling a single idol. So his uh, fitra was so pure and so amazing and so uncorrupt that it slowly expanded to the other parts of his life. Definitely being truthful. If you have an uncorrupt fitra, you will definitely have the righteous qualities. As I said, if you leave a poor child alone without any external influences, that person will grow out to be a righteous child. Why? Because all of his ethics and morality, all of what he thinks is right and what is wrong, and being truthful and being honest, it always comes from his fitra, from that person's fitra, even though you might not believe it. Because fitra plays a huge part here, but you don't realize it, right? And moving on, the other most interesting part, the very interesting part, and one of the most my favorite parts in this particular episode is Ibrahim alayhi salam's logical arguments for God. And this is definitely based on the fitra. There is no philosophical arguments, there is no theoretical arguments, there is no complex arguments, or none of those stuff. We have pure arguments made from the fitra itself. The first argument, you find all of these arguments in the Quran and the story itself. The first argument is when Ibrahim alayhi salam, he looked up at the stars, the sun and the moon, the planets and the skies of the galaxies. And he realized that everything was controlled. And this is an argument purely created from such a genuine question, right? How can something be God if that something is controlled, right? How can something controlled be God if something that controls us, if something controls the universe, then that thing, that entity, that divine being must be free from all restrictions. It must be free from all control. So how can something controlled be a divine being? This was the first argument that he brought forth. And this was enough. If you have a pure fitra, these questions are enough. Stop studying mantik. Yeah? Stop studying too much philosophy. You don't need that. These questions are enough for you as long as you are pure fitra. This is a sad and sick illness that we have today. That we think that the questions that we have, the arguments that we make for God through our fitra is not enough. That we need to study philosophy, we need to study logic. All of these stuff, you need all of this stuff, philosophical stuff, only if you have an uncorrupt fitra. And even then, it's going to take a long time. All of these notions, all of these arguments from ontology and stuff, you don't need them. You just need a basic pure fitra and uncorrupt fitra that you can achieve through many different points, which we will be explaining later, inshallah. That's enough for you. That suffices. That's the first thing. And number two, the second argument that he made, that how can something that cannot hear, that cannot talk, or that cannot be of any benefit for the people be classified as a god? How can something that has no attributes be considered as a divine being? It is pure from his heart, a genuine question and a genuine argument. And these arguments were enough to piss off the people of Ur. And these arguments were enough to have the people of Ur banish him. These arguments were enough to have Ibrahim alayhi salam's father turned against him. Right? And the third argument that he put forth is, how can idols be of benefit for the people? Right? How can something that is fixed on a certain position, a certain place, or a certain thing that cannot talk, that cannot eat, that cannot sleep, that I was saying as sleep in the sense of like that cannot even do the basic stuff as a human being, let alone a divine attribute, let alone a divine action. They cannot do a basic human action. How can such an entity be of benefit for the people? Even if the people cannot even talk, even if the idol cannot even talk, how can it be benefit for to the people, right? So there's the third argument that he brought forth, a very argument that convinces a lot of people. And the fourth one is the incoherence of multiple gods, of polytheism. Which among these multiple gods is actually the true God? Which among these is the actual truth? And which among these is actual benefit? Right? So it was there's incoherence in this. There's multiple fallacies in this as well. And the fifth and the most interesting part, in my opinion, is the relationship between a spiritual being and that spiritual being restricted to an idol. Can God truly restrict himself in the form of an idol? Yes or no? The answer is definitely not. Because the people of Ur, they believe that they didn't worship the physical outlook that appeared of the idols. They don't worship the physical idols, rather they worshipped the spiritual being, the spiritual factor that is within the idols, right? And it's something they believed, and there's an incoherence in this as well. That so how can do you think a god would restrict himself in order to have people make an image of himself and worship himself, while the god could have a direct relationship with the person? This is definitely no, right? Uh, so this thing about having focus on a spiritual point that's been restricted to an idol is basically wrong and false, and there's a lot of incoherence in this as well. Give a second. Do you have any more questions on this topic before we move on? If you have any questions, let me know. Sure. Just ping me on the side. Okay, I get you. Mm, okay. Okay. Yeah, about atheism and polytheism. Since we're really restricted on time, we can open the questions together and then I'll answer it in detail, inshallah. So don't worry about that. Okay, perfect. Okay, amazing. Yeah, it is a crazy, to be honest. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Anyways, moving on. Second. Yeah, about polytheism. Its incoherence is definitely the multiple gods, difficulty in identifying. Yes, definitely. Okay, it's a good point, yeah. Okay, that is a good answer. Yes, definitely. Can I use that for debates? Yeah, you can definitely use that for debates. It's a good answer. You just need to work on that specific point, and then you can work on that, inshallah. However, uh, mhm. And so these questions, these points that I brought forth, it's actually based on the fitrah, the natural inclination, the natural disposition. So you can use arguments, definitely suffices. Oh, you have used these arguments before, and it has worked against the kuffar. Oh, that's perfect. Allah barik. Interesting. Yes, it goes back to ethics and morality as well. Mm, that's a good point. You can definitely use that, inshallah. Okay, do you have any more questions? Anyone else? If you have any questions, you can ask them now, inshallah. Okay. Okay, that point about relativism is actually a long topic. It's a really complicated topic. I'll expand more on that in a VM or text message is open ticket. Just DM me about it, okay? Oh, sounds good. Sounds perfect. Okay, let me check. Do you guys have any other questions? Yeah, that point. Mhm. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's a good point. You can use. Okay. Anyways, let me see. Anyone else more questions? You can ping me in your chats. It's gonna take some time to respond. Just give me a sec. Just give me a sec. Okay. Is anyone with questions related to what I talked about before I move on to the next one? Because almost done with the session. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, as I mentioned, that's a good point, man. Okay. I want questions for it. I want questions about what I talked about. So then you can open a question ticket and then I'll answer ticket, yeah, inshallah. I want questions specifically about this topic. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, moving on. The next topic, achieving prophethood. The tale about Ibrahim alayhi salam achieving prophethood. As you mentioned, he was given wisdom, he was given knowledge, he was given strong ability to distinguish between the right and the wrong at a very early age. And that allowed him Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You guys hear me now? Well, let me know if you can hear me. What? Okay, perfect. That was amazing. So where did I cut out from? Because okay, where did I leave off? Like, oh, where did you last hear me from? Which point was that? Was I talking about the prophethood for Ibrahim alayhi salam attaining prophethood? Mm. Receiving prophecy, okay. Jazakallah khair. That's amazing. Receiving prophecy. Okay. Here a second. As I mentioned, Ibrahim alayhi salam achieving prophethood was not a normal factor, right? There were things that led him to achieve prophethood. Even if he did achieve prophethood, even if he did achieve messenger, there were certain things that definitely distinguished him as a messenger that was known as the father of all prophets, the father of all messengers. People, a messenger that was so special and amazing, right? That the people who came after him, right? The people who came after him, even if they were non-believers, even if there were people who rejected the mainstream monotheistic religions, even if they were just classical theists, or even if they were polytheists, even if they were anything else, they still had respect for the conviction that Abraham alayhi salam had in mind. To understand this, let's take a look at the story of one of the hot topics that we have in society right now, the story of Palestine, the Israel-Palestine conflict. Going deeper in history, before the Nakba, before everything, like from the time of the children of Nuh alayhi salam, when they came and they settled in this holy land, that is like southern Jordan, Jordan, Palestine, and forgot the other thing. Basically, the Holy Land, or you can call it Sham. There's a region of Sham plus some places of some other parts. So in this issue, when the Canaanites came, the original indigenous Palestinians, when they came, what they did was they stayed firm upon the true monotheistic path. However, there were some deviations. There were Semites. But when Ibrahim alayhi was commanded and ordered to migrate to this holy land, and from him came Ishaq alayhi salam, and from him came Yaqub alayhi salam, also referred to as Israel, and from him came the children of Israel, not the ones that we know today, because the ones that we have today is not the children of Israel, because the original tribes of the children of Israel, the basic the 12 tribes were definitely wiped out from history. There's no trace left of them. So if anyone comes and tells you that the Zionists that we have today are actually the children of Israel, they make such a stupid point that disagrees, that goes against the history as well. Because as far as we know, the either the Assyrians they came in, they wiped out 10 tribes of the children of Israel, and then came in the Romans or the Babylonians that wiped off to the last two tribes. So the thing is, even when after the children of Israel faced some time in Egypt under the rule of Pharaoh, and they came back to the Holy Land, right? And there were other certain issues. What they had is that they always believed in the path of Ibrahim and Islam, true monotheism, and some other kingdoms that conquered this land. The Persians, for example, they saw the conviction of the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the monotheism that he had, the monotheism that he believed in. So they made way and a path for these people to actually come and practice their faith, practice their religion, and that is how they allowed the Jews to go back and build their temple and have a good society until it was all broken down again due to rebellion and all this stuff. So even the kuffar are impressed with the monotheism of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And I won't expand much upon this, on these two aspects, because we will really cover all of this stuff in detail in later episodes. Because this episode is just to It's meant to be an introductory episode, inshallah. And the next part, something that you must really understand and note, is that throughout every single episode in this series, what you will always find us talking about and discussing the strong conviction and belief, right? Belief and conviction. You would, because this is a very important part that distinguished him from other prophets, and because I'm not saying other prophets in the sense of like his conviction was far superior. That his conviction was in a level that we as human beings we cannot comprehend. It is difficult for us to comprehend, right? Because he faced a lot of different adversities, different tragedies and everything that we will cover later, inshallah. So this is everything that you guys need to keep in mind. It went over 1 hour 30 minutes. It's definitely okay. So it's basically it for today's session. And I hope you guys have made notes. If you don't have your notes, okay, let me know. I'll send you some of the stuff that we made. Right. So I want you to let me know in chat. Do you guys understand the contents of this particular session so far? Mhm. Okay, that's perfect. Let me know if you understood. Mm. Or avoid. Mhm. Anyone else? Let me know if you can understand any point, because I'll repeat that point and expand further upon that, inshallah. So this is actually a sudden episode that, to be honest, had to be done urgently, so we could not make more contents. Because in reality, there's so much more that we can talk about when it comes to this uh, aspect of his life alone. Ibrahim alayhi salam's life is very broad. There's so many things that we can talk about. However, we had to restrict it to these few contents for today's episode. So let me know if you guys understood, or if you guys found this particular session beneficial, etc., etc. Inshallah. Uh, okay. Okay, that's good. So let me know if you guys understood anything else. It's being me because beautiful question. Okay. That's perfect, right? Allah Mubarak. Mm. Okay. Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, you can DM me later about that, inshallah. Yeah, continue about that. It's a really good point. Mm. We will definitely cover. It's actually interesting because it's the next episode actually. We're going to be covering, classical conditioning. It's good that you mentioned that. Definitely want to cover classical conditioning in the next episode if you truly believe that's something really important to see. Anyways, I think that brings us to the conclusion, to the ending of today's session episode. So once again, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for coming to this episode, this session, and engaging with us. May Allah bless you all, bless everyone that entered. And likewise for the females, there's going to be a similar event. Right? It's going to be titled Our Mother Hajar and Sarah alayhi salam, where there's going to be amazing. A second. There's been some hosts talking about some amazing contents and topics about the life of the wives of Ibrahim alayhi salam and their lives, and how we can actually benefit from them. You can always go to the female chat and ask about the event. It's going to be held very soon. It's really good and inspiring, so stay tuned for that as well. And this particular episode of Ibrahim alayhi salam series is going to be the series is going to be held like every 2 days. So possibly the next episode could be around the 21st, the 24th, and so on, inshallah. And also look out for the Sira event. It's going to start out very soon, inshallah, once again. So look out for that.
Anyways, may Allah bless you all for joining. Have a great and amazing fun time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.